Right, this is the site of the old shoe factory where we all worked. This factory, if you look, it started up here. This was the clicking room here. And here was the sewing room below it, where we sewed all the... It went right the way across. It was quite big and two-storey. That was an old building. It's gone now. They've put new buildings up. But that large shed you see down there, that was the factory, and that's where we did all the lasting and the dispatch, and it goes all the way down to the bottom. And these buildings over here were also part of the factory. Around there, that was where we had what we called the storage and the pump house, and so the whole of this area was the factory. We made 25,000 pairs of shoes every week, 5,000 pairs a day. There was 320 people worked there, and it was like a community. Richmond's a community, and it's a wonderful community. And the factory was a community within a community. We all knew each other. There was people, cousins, aunties, brothers, sisters, they all worked there. And unfortunately in 1989, the factory closed, and that's when Altberg started. And we started, you can't see it from here, but it's just over the road, just over the other side of them buildings, some old army barracks. They were terrible. There was mould growing on the walls, there was no heating, they were drafty. It was a dreadful place to work, but it's all we could afford, and we managed to get it going. And that's where I made the first Altberg boots. And if we walk along here now, I'm just going to walk along and I'm going to point out to you that if you look over here, I'm stood here, and if you just look through here, you see the Altberg factory. That's where we are now. So we didn't move very far, did we? We moved about 100 yards over that way, and we've moved 100 yards that way. So anyway, we're still here and we're still doing what we do. And I never thought that my age I'd still be making boots in Richmond, but I am. This is a much better building, as you can see. It wasn't new, it was about 20 years old when we got it, managed to get it, but it's a much better building. It's got heating, it's not got any damp, and it's fairly draft proof. And really, when we moved from the old building to here, we all thought we'd died and gone to heaven, any bootmaker's heaven anyway. And I'll show you this. There's a picture up here, if you can see it, on the wall up there. And that picture is of 1990, outside of the old factory, which is just over there. And they're all working there then. In fact, one of them, Paul and Ian and Debbie, they still work here now. And on this picture, this is 2016. And again, pretty much the same people, or some of them the same. Debbie's still there, Ian's still there, Paul's at the back. So we've got same people there. And it gives you some idea of the continuity in Richmond, and the fact that it sort of emphasises we're a community in the town as well. I like this factory exactly as it is. It's a great factory, and we make some good stuff in here. All of the Altberg boots were made here until 1990 or 2000. This was like a big workshop, and we were doing very well. We made specialist boots for the military and for the police. For the police it was dog handlers, for the military it was all sorts of things, and hiking boots in lots of width fittings. So each boot was a specialist boot. People would come, measure their feet, we'd make the boot. And we were doing okay. We were making, it made a living for everybody, and we paid all our bills. And I've never been the most ambitious person in the world, and I was quite happy with that. And so this place was my dream, because in this factory, all we do is we make boots. I don't even have an office. So that's how, this is where everything was done. A tender came out with the northwest region of the police, which is a lot of police forces, you know, a lot of boots. But we only wanted the specialist boots. I entered for the firearms, search teams, dog handlers, which are always smaller quantities, maybe 40, 50 pairs in an order. Perfect for here. And what happened in around about 2000 was we got awarded the contract, and I got boots that I didn't really think we'd get. And I ended up with the contract for the opening order of 5,000 pairs of boots for the police. Now at that time we were making 150 pairs a week. So I mean, you don't need a calculator to figure it out. We were going to be 3 years making the first delivery. And that would never have, that wouldn't have been good. But the police of the Northwest region, they were really, really cooperative, and they worked with us. They said, look, Mike, don't worry about it. We want, the officers want your boots. Now we'll work with you to enable that to happen. And that's what they did. And I went out, tried to find another factory where I cooperate with, because I didn't want to change things in here, because it works really well making specialist stuff, and I like boot making. So I finally found another factory down in Earl Shilton in Leicester. It was called Orton's. It was founded in 1891 by Harry Orton, and his descendants were still running it in 2000, Frank Orton. And it was a great factory. It really was a lovely factory. And so I would go down there. I took my knives, my patterns, my lasts, everything that we use in here, materials, and we started to make the same boots down there. And I worked with them in the factory, for quite a while. Then I would go down every month or so and just work with them, just keep them. So the way in which they worked with our boots was exactly the same as the way we worked in here. And things went along very, very well. I could get back to just doing what I like doing again and not being pressured. And what happened was that I hadn't noticed that in that factory the average age was probably above 60. And after about 2.5 years, Frank Orton said, even young Annie's beginning to complain. And I said, how old is young Annie? He said, well, she's 63 now, and she was one of the younger ones. In them days, there were no young people coming into shoe factories or boot factories. In fact, young people were no longer coming to any form of craft-based manufacturing. After the 70s and the recession, things had changed. So, when I first came into footwear, making boots and shoes, there must have been 500 shoe factories in this country, and by the year 2000 there were maybe 20 or 30 left, and Orton's was one of them. I wasn't set up to make big quantities here in this factory, and I wouldn't want to, because this factory is great the way it is. So at Orton's I started to make the contract boots only. I didn't make any other boots, just the contract boots for the police. And things worked well until 2005, or roundabout, I'm not 100% sure of dates. And Frank Orton came to me and he was very apologetic, and he said, we're going to have to close. So I went all over the UK then, looking at factories which used to be there. But what I found out was they were no longer there. And that's when I realized the extent to which between 1970 and 2005, craft-based manufacturing had virtually been wiped out. At that point I had no choice. I had to keep making boots because I had a contract to fulfill. And so the only place I knew where to go was across to Italy. This is going to be the Trucker Boot Company, which is part of Altberg. And it was a Grade 2 listed building. And I think at one time it would have been the stables for these larger houses up here. But it's a lovely situation, and when it's finished, you can't see it now, but it was quite industrial, and I'll be renovating it back to what it would have been in the turn of this century, which would be very appropriate for trucker boots, which are a classic a classic boot which became very fashionable in the 60s for the mods and what have you, but it's still a classic, and I love classic boots. The old fella who taught me, William Shepherd, he always told me that make a classic boot, but make it as it should be today. So, and that's, I've always followed that. Altberg boots are classic boots, and these chucker boots are classic boots. So we've just been out and we've looked at where I'm going to build my new factory, and at my age that's quite an expression of optimism and hope, really, isn't it? At my age, I never thought I'd be doing it, but I'm very happy to do it. And really it's about a sense that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the interest of younger people and older people in making things with their hands, I think it's coming back again. People like to make things. So in this factory, we'll continue to make all the specialists, but the boots we make here are very complicated, technical boots. And it takes a long time to learn to make boots like this. But the type of footwear that I first started making was a much simpler type of footwear. This is called a chucker boot, and that's very similar to what I first started making. 2 side seams, stitch around the top line, a back seam, not very much stitching in it, and it's a boot you can learn to make. And so in Richmond we'll continue to make we still make most of our motorcycle boots in Richmond and the specialist boots, but they're all boots that take a very high skill level, and they take a lot of, they're not easy to make. And certainly to go from nowhere to making a pair of the motorcycle boots in the way we make them here, I don't think I could have done it when I was young anyway. I think I had to begin with this. These are perfect business. These are called chucker boots. And this is going to be my new factory I'm starting up. It's still connected, we're all in the same. You've just had a look at where I'm doing it. And we're going to start making these. And I'm very excited about it. So to finish this, you see you've got different colours. I can do different colours on it. I'm putting good quality soles. I'm still sticking with really good quality. And a lot of my suedes, I can get them in Stead's Tannery down in Leeds. So see these coloured suedes? They make the best suede in the world down there. That's my opinion anyway, I would say that. But it's brilliant suede. So what I'm going to be doing is hopefully begin to teach some of the people here in how we make our chucker boots. I believe that if the circle has turned, I can't even begin to say what satisfaction it would give me to get new people coming in and passing on to them what I've learned. And this type of footwear is the perfect way to do it. So, to summarise the question, which we get asked, where does Altberg make its boots? In Richmond we make specialists. We're like a big workshop. We make specialist boots, we make one-offs, we make extreme width fittings, all the things that you can't do in mass production. And we still make our motorcycle boots here. This vast majority of them are made here. When we're successful and we get the larger quantities, we have the factory in Italy, and over there we make the larger quantities, 100 pair batches, and that works well because that's a production line where we can get better efficiency and so make it better prices for a production line, because the quantity, when you're doing a higher quantity, you're more efficient, but less flexibility. Here, maximum flexibility, but to make one-off pairs, it's not so efficient, so the costs are higher. And that's Altberg. We work in 2 sites, and very shortly we'll be working in 3 sites, because I've got a new venture which I hope will be almost like a teaching factory. That would be my dream anyway. Whether I can only work at it and hope it comes true.